Good evening. It's fun to be here. I'm delighted. I'm going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is how to get stakeholder buy-in for user research, because it's not always about delighting customers. And so we're going to explore what it is or could be about and how to address it. Now, most of this room probably agree with Al Gore here, but our stakeholders sometimes do not. So they don't have budget, they don't have time, it wasn't in the product plan, and so forth. You fill in the blanks. They just don't have the budget. So they might end up being or feeling like an enemy. You don't want that. So this is the time to be acutely aware of your situation. Who are these people? They're unique in every organization, but really get an understanding, in this presentation we'll get to that, of what they're about. So I want to look at the 3 reasons why businesses fail, and Susan Weinschenk outlines them here. Tonight we're going to talk about poor communications and stakeholder politics, because these are key. Now, you remove that red bar from that politics icon there, you are in politics. Congratulations. It's about negotiation and persuasion, and that's how you convince stakeholders. So we're going to hear about a lot of people from UX, human factors, design, psychology, and more. And this is the first one. Jerry McGovern says that we must stop whining and take off our boxing gloves. Instead, develop empathy with stakeholders and talk about the outputs, not the inputs. Now, if we must complain, let's make a complaint sandwich where you have a positive, in the middle you've got the negative, and then you've got another positive. It's much more palatable when you're talking to a stakeholder and much more persuasive. Now, this fellow is an expert at persuasion, which is the creation of consensus from conflict or indifference. And so he says that understanding your audience is fundamental to any persuasion situation. And Seth Godin has a lot to say about everything, but he says that you've got to stop complaining and say, how can I use the insights I've learned to allow the person, the stakeholders, to look better, to allow them to take credit so you make them stars. That's a tip. Now, Lou Rosenfeld is a storyteller, and he tells one about a UX team lead in a very large organization couldn't convince stakeholders what she was all about, what her team was doing. She bought them candy, she got to know them, it worked. Now, another way to start that dialogue with people in different departments and that have different backgrounds, maybe HCI, analytics, engineers, marketing, put together a grid here and find some shared interests, start the conversation. But Johanna from London says, be very careful in that conversation about your terminology. You can scare stakeholders with your terminology. So meet your stakeholders where they are, not where you are. Now, Paul from Facebook says it's very, very important to develop empathy with stakeholders, and one way to do that is to understand what's important to them. Understand the product roadmap. Why are they making these decisions? What's important to them? Why are they building this or changing that? Very key. Now, over at NASA, we have Jay, who is saying that the user research can really be that neutral third party, where if you get in a situation where you can present research that will solve a problem or a dispute. Klaus Kaskard, he says, he takes a different approach. Be introspective, stop complaining, another one who's saying that, and stop talking about how special we are every time, but rather look at strategic questions that we must be asking of our stakeholders. Over at Bentley University, Mina says that we must find some need that is not met, develop a scenario, do some research, present the measurement. It's all about measurement to show success. And here we have typical ROI measures from the brilliant Susan Weinschenk, who has great ROI calculators. I happen to use one of hers to calculate for a college client how the savings that they would have if they redesigned their intranet of over $410,000 a year, which would pay for almost 12 full-time employees. That's an ROI model that shows them, oh, this is what we're going to get from this. Now, Leah from Intuit here, she believes that what you need to do is build interpersonal relationships. That's where all the good ideas come from, so take people to lunch, get to know them. And if you've done all these things and you've had no success, listen to Jared Spool. There's no point in working with unengaged stakeholders. Go find better ones. Sorry for that slide.